when I talked about my mom having this opportunity and getting me in a good vehicle because, you know, I think the vehicle is it can be just as important as who you are as a person because, being in the right situation and having the ammunition that I have with the builder behind me, with the product that they have that I can go and move, that kind of volume is really important. But, like you said, it is a contact sport. And I didn't just start yesterday and just do 70 units. Like, you take seven years and you work your way up,
Yeah.
and you do the best that you can. You create the relationships, and you got to be in it for the long haul because it's not just a get rich quick scheme, as some people like to say. But you got to be in it for the long haul. You got to put in the work, and eventually, those relationships start to cultivate. They start to monetize, and you can do anything you're willing to put the work in for.
Welcome to the Success with Listings podcast, where we help you get success in the real estate game the easy way. Now you can get off the roller coaster of feast and famine and out of the rat race of competing with every other agent in town. Hi, I'm Knolly Williams. I took over 1,000 listings during my first 10 years in the real estate game, and in this podcast, I show you how to have success with listings. Let's go. What's up, Knolly Williams, back at you again, and I have a super special guest for you today. You're going to love Ray Nouhan. Now, Ray, he got on my radar. We were introduced by a mutual friend in the business,
Yep.
and she was like, okay, this guy needs help with this, and I know that Knolly could probably help him. So she connected me, and I'm like, Ray, I don't usually have these kind of phone calls, but you piqued my interest. Now, listen to this. Before I get at you, Ray, I want to just tell the
Yeah.
people, you
Sure.
started in the real estate game at the age of 22. Okay.
Yep.
That has a special place in my heart because that's kind of when I started my first business. Officially, uh, actually, I've been an entrepreneur since like 12, 13. I'm sure that is similar to your story. But you
Yeah.
got in the game, man, and you're 29 years old as of this recording, as of this, time right now, this podcast, you're 29 years old.
Correct.
Last year, I'm just going to kick it off with this. Last year, you did 70 units, you sold 70 homes, and
Yeah.
you did that's over $23 million in production. And I got to tell you, Ray, I
Yeah.
had to have you on Success with Listings podcast because
Yeah.
I want to know how you did it, and we're
Okay.
going to talk all about it. What's
All
up?
right.
What's up, my man Ray?
About
How you doing, brother?
about to get into it. No, I'm doing good, and I appreciate you having me on. I mean, this feels exclusive. I feel like a real important person today, and I appreciate you having me.
Man, you're really important because you are going to inspire those of us like me in my 50s, those in their 60s, and I even have agents in their 70s. And of course, I've got some just talked to an agent today that's got a 19-year-old, okay,
Yeah.
that she is basically just got her license and educating in the business. And what
Yeah.
we're talking about cutting a 5, 7, or 10-year curve off the trajectory of people's success just by learning the tips. If you learn what people like Ray are doing, you are going to cut down on the time and angst that you have in this
Yes.
game. So you're exclusive new home construction,
Yeah.
Ray. But tell us about how you decided. So I'm going to kind of take you back a little bit. Okay, you're
Sure.
13, 16, whatever age you want to go.
Yeah.
When did you first decide that you wanted to be successful?
Successful. Okay. Yeah. That's a good question as always. So, I grew up with a very large family. I'm one of 8 kids. I'm the largest of 8 kids. And, always watching my brothers and sisters. I like to say that I matured quickly, just always kind of being responsible, if you will. And I always wanted a really big family myself. And so raised by two parents that did a great job, just always kind of instilling, you got to be your best possible self. And, if you want to go somewhere, you're going to have to take yourself there. But yeah, I would say, getting out of college and going kind of following the footsteps of my mom. She's always been in new construction, always been in real estate. She kind of introduced me to a good opportunity with this builder and kind of got me started on the right path and gave me a good vehicle to do what I've always wanted to do, which is provide for my family.
And you're with Allen Edwin Homes. I know that's a kind of a
Yep.
big builder in that area.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously you could have gone anywhere with your skill set. You had mom there to help coach you, and a lot of people don't have that. That's a beautiful thing, and that's why
Yes.
really I'm having you on here. Maybe even
Yeah.
for the person that whose mom maybe just wasn't there for them, or the dad wasn't there, whatever it was. But
Yeah.
from 8 kids, man. So which number are you? Where are you at in the mix?
Top of the line, number one.
What? Talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. No, so numero uno,
Yep. Number one. Yep.
number one. So you actually had, so you grew up with a leadership angle, if you will, because you had seven people, other people
Yeah.
looking up to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm the oldest grandchild, if you will, as well. So, we got a bunch of cousins and I'm the oldest of all that. And it kind of just plays into, I guess, you have to lead by example. And whether you think about it when you're that young or not, it kind of just is what it is. And, the younger ones, they do look up to you and whatnot. So kind of shapes who you are for sure.
So you went to college, you got your
Yes,
degree, and then
I
you
did.
decided, how did you decide real estate?
Yeah, it was one of those things where I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do real estate. I'm going to do real estate. I went to school for hospitality. So I went to Ferris State University in Michigan, and I thought I was going to be, resort management. I always wanted to do something with people. That definitely has been something I've been passionate about since, as long as I can remember. And it was actually a friend of mine who was like, hey, if we get our license, while we're in college, we can make some cold calls and we can try to make some money on the side. And my mom has always been in real estate. So it kind of just was like, oh, that seems natural. It seems like something I could do. And so we did it. And I graduated high school and right out of the gate just went straight into real estate. Didn't even think kind of twice about it. Went straight into real estate.
That's quite interesting because I want to go back to this hospitality degree. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, hospitality is something that, I mean, we're talking psychology, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about human beings. How do you interact with other human beings and help them have the most enjoyable experience possible? Now, how
Yeah.
much of that education do you think contributed toward your success, like the success that you've had?
I think all of it, it all plays a role in it. Just, you're talking about the human psychology, as real estate agents, we're creating an experience. We're taking someone through a process and everyone kind of coins it as, one of the biggest purchases or one of the most emotional purchases that you'll make. And if you want to look at it from the lens of, hospitality, that's customer service at its finest, at its highest degree. And so they're going to experience whatever you kind of put out for them. And so I think everything I learned kind of prepares you or gives you tips and tricks. You take things here, you take things there, and you kind of create the experience that you want to deliver with you and your business.
This is quite interesting because I'm actually seeing something as we're talking. I don't think I've ever spoken to someone that has a hospitality degree that went into real estate.
Sure.
And I may have, but I
Hmm.
don't remember. Nothing comes to mind. Most
Yeah.
of us, either had a business degree,
Right.
MBA. We had
Marketing.
marketing, economics. But when you think about it, that could possibly be the best kind of degree to have
Yeah.
when you're going into this business because you're talking about it. It's people, right? This is a contact sport, and
Yes.
you're providing them with a level of. I mean, not only are you setting expectation, but you're providing them with a level of service beyond what they would even expect to have. You
Yeah.
know, so I'm seeing for you, man. I think we might even need to connect and create a course on how to from a hospitality standpoint, how do you become the all-star realtor, the
Yeah.
all-star real estate agent from a
Yeah.
hospitality perspective? Hey, we might have to get together on a course on that because
Take it to the next level.
yeah, no doubt about it. So how in the world do you do 70 deals, 23 million in production? I mean,
Yeah.
are people just asking for you or what's the secret there, man?
Yeah, well, like I said in the beginning, when I talked about my mom having this opportunity and getting me in a good vehicle, because, you know, I think the vehicle is it can be just as important as who you are as a person, because, being in the right situation and having the ammunition that I have with the builder behind me, with the product that they have that I can go and move, that kind of volume is really important. But, like you said, it is a contact sport. And I didn't just start yesterday and just do 70 units. Like, you take seven years and you work your way up
Yeah.
and you do the best that you can, you create the relationships and you got to be in it for the long haul because it's not just a get rich quick scheme as, some people like to say, but you got to be in it for the long haul. You got to put in the work and eventually, those relationships start to cultivate, they start to monetize and, you can do anything you're willing to put the work in for.
I'm kind of smiling here because I'm already seeing the people that I'm going to send this podcast out to.
Yeah.
and they're older than you, right?
Yeah,
And you'll be able to encourage them like, hey, I mean, we're talking basics here. It's like, I mean,
yeah,
these are fundamentals is probably a better way to say it, not basics, but
yeah,
fundamentals that
yeah,
many people just do not either know or don't practice or follow. You know, it's
yeah.
time on the task over time, time on the task over
Yes.
time.
Yep.
And it seems like you, from our conversation that we had together, you're relentless and you don't give up. You're not super pushy, and
Mm.
you give us a little bit of an idea of what makes you unique in terms of the of how you interact with people.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would say if there's styles of salespeople, I would say I'm not as of a hard closer as possible. That's not my style. I would say that some of my hospitality maybe takes over, and there's a term that people use like a sales breath terminology, where you can
Say it
kind of come
again.
across sales
Sales
having
breath. Yeah,
sales
yeah,
breath, kind of coming
yeah.
across as
Commission.
too salesy,
Yeah,
right?
or
You can
commission
smell the
breath. We
commit.
call it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So you've heard that before,
Yep.
and I try to stray away from that, because no different than people can kind of see if you're being fake, they can kind of see and smell that stuff too. And so you try to be as authentic as possible. And I think that's just something that I try to do with everybody that I meet with. And I think that the authenticity, people want the transparency. And in this day and age, it's tough to know like what's true or what's real, what someone's interacting with you, if you can believe them. And that authenticity, if you can be true and authentic, it does show through and it makes people trust you more.
You know, I'm just curious how many other people in their 20s that you know personally that are tracking with the kind of success that you've had.
Well, I don't, it's tough to say for sure, but I got some realtor friends in the game, and they're doing good as well. And you try to connect yourself with people that you align with for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's you being humble. I,
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
I can tell you it's a very short list of the people that I personally know
Yeah.
that did, 23 million and 70, deals last year. So
Right.
let's and I appreciate that because you what I really want to anchor into is this hospitality thing. Now we did not prepare for this. I gave
Hmm.
you no questions in advance. I
Yep.
had no idea where the conversation is going to lead, and that's just how we
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
I like to let the Holy Spirit just do his thing and just go where we
Amen.
go. So as we're talking now, I want to lean into this hospitality thing. And as
Okay.
I'm doing it, what's happening is you're snapping back to school and you're starting to remember a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
from school that you use unconsciously. Like it's just part of who you are now.
Yes.
It's not even a you're not going from a exercise or homework or from a book. It's just part
Hmm.
of your shtick, if you
It's
will.
unconscious now. Just
It's
happens.
completely. So talk to us a little bit about with a hospitality degree, what are some things that you see agents out there not necessarily doing wrong, but they could maybe improve on from a hospitality standpoint or from that perspective? I know I threw you
Yeah.
for a loop. I didn't want
It's
to have to
okay.
take you back to college, but you know how we do it.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I would say, some of the things that I focus on that maybe others don't would be some of the small and finer details, body language, tonality, different things, mirroring. I mean, all this stuff is kind of baked into psychology and how people feel when you interact with them. And I would say that, that does help when you're meeting with someone for the first time, because as real estate agents, we meet people for the first time literally every week, all the time. And so, first impressions or how you make someone feel within a certain amount of time is really important for us. So you can, win that prospect over, make them feel comfortable. And if you're an agent that does residential real estate, win them over as a realtor, because they have to choose you, right? They can choose anybody out there. But if you make them feel a certain way, or you can, win their business a little bit quicker. So, things like that. There's one thing I remember in college that one professor had told me, when you're creating experience, the experience that you can give as an analogy to its highest degree would be a place like Disney World. When you go to Disney World, it's called Disney World because you feel like you're going to a different place. And they have a certain experience that you exercise there, that you feel. And so something as small as, like, they talked about when we would be working in restaurants for internships and whatnot, like chewing gum or putting on chapstick. That takes your experience and it kind of takes you away from the experience of what you're trying to do, because that takes it and like normalizes things. And maybe I'm not using the right word there, but just a small example like that of little things where, again, if you're creating this experience, you got to be in the zone. You got to be in game mode of, doing the best job that you can do with that. I know that's super granular, just something that came to mind came to mind
It's
there.
kind of, I'm kind of laughing here because I remember a listing that I took, and the reason I got the listing was the the client was meeting with several people, and this other
Yeah.
agent, she says, Nolly, he chewed gum the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's those little things,
Smacking.
especially when you first meet a person for the first time, like you talked about, you examine their body language,
Yeah.
you look at their tonality, the way they're speaking, and coupled with the idea of just being authentic and actually who you are instead of
Yeah.
trying to put on a performance for the
Right.
person.
Hmm.
And so so outside of college, what things have you done to really sharpen your game? Like, have you
Yeah.
continued to study sort of sales
Yeah.
or marketing and things like that?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So the one book that I think everyone will just be familiar with because it's a very popular book, it's a Dale Carnegie book, it's the How to Win Friends and Influence People. I
Mhm.
would say that's the most influential book that I've ever read that I've been able to implement because you pick up little things from different books, but that was the one where I took so much of that material and just made sure I made that an unconscious habit, something that I'm doing without even thinking about doing anymore.
Sure.
And so, using names and, not insulting people. I mean, little things. I mean, just that book is so good. And it's an older book, but it's just got so much, like you said, going back to like the foundation, not the basics, but just getting back to the simplicity of things. And that's a really good book that I always practice. But
Mhm.
there's places that have the online sales platforms. You learn different techniques and just different strategies. Grant Cardone, I've done that one. I know that one's a little bit more of he's more of a hard sell, but just I learned that stuff as well, just to kind of get all of the information and pick up what I like and what fits my style. There's Jeff Shore. There's so many different trainers out there. I'm always trying to learn and get better for sure.
Yeah, it's basically you take bits and pieces of all the of everything, and then you mold it into your style of how,
Yes.
and there's bits and pieces that you just don't pick up, and you say, this doesn't work for my personality,
Yeah.
and you don't implement. And speaking of that book, Dale Carnegie's book, How
Yeah.
to Win Friends and Influence People, there are I talked to a guy one time, and he says, man, because that book can actually be used to manipulate. Now that's a
Mhm.
whole different game, that we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
But he had an experience with an individual that sort of mentored him and was
Yeah.
using the techniques from that book in probably a not the way that Carnegie
In-
intended.
Intended it.
Put it that way,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
anything can be misused. Okay,
Sure.
and so at the end of the day, it really boils down to figuring out what helps people to have the best experience possible and being loving enough to study it and say, okay,
Yeah.
how can I give this person, because you already know that doing business with you is the right decision for them,
Right.
in most
Yep.
cases.
Yes.
And there's going to be cases where you say, you know what, this product is not for you, and that's okay too. But in
Yes.
most cases, you're going to know that. So it's like, okay, how can I do them a favor and help them make the right decision, which is to choose me?
Yeah.
And I'm going to study what is it that will help me do that. And that's a great book for that. So I appreciate you sharing that with us as well. So
Yeah.
um, is there anything else that we're leaving out? Like, and I know I've got a couple more questions that I do have to ask you.
Yeah.
Um, being that in I have one that pops out in my head. I'm not going to ask it yet,
Yeah.
but what else do you think that we might be missing out in terms of, there's an agent out there that says, man, I'm kind of struggling. All of us went through, the downs of the recent market and so on. I mean, the
Yeah.
market is what it is.
Yeah.
What would you say to a person that's like, I just can't make this work? How can this guy, I mean, how can this kid, some of us talk that way. I'm 54, so I
Yeah.
could actually say that. What is this kid? I mean, honestly, it kind of makes some people upset, but it shouldn't. It should make them
Motivate.
inspired, motivate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what else could, you know what I'm saying? What else are we missing
Yeah. I
that we
would
could?
say, like we talked about, it's not just an overnight success, but action. Look at the actions that you're doing, because we as a builder, someone who works for a builder, we really cultivate our relationships with realtors. We want to work with realtors. We know that the realtor community is the one with the buyers, and we don't want to push them away, because there's a misconception that builders don't want to work with realtors, and with us, we want to. And so sometimes I have to kind of look in the mirror and look at my actions to say, hey, are my actions lined up with what my outcome and what I want it to be? You got to be out there. If you're just waiting for it to come to you, I don't think that that's maybe the best recipe for, making money or whatever your goals are in your business. But you got to be making sure that you're doing the output to get the input. Or,
I
you know what
love
I
it.
mean? Yeah,
I
you got to
love
make
it.
sure you're
Yeah.
putting in the good work. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards, at least in the way I think about it, because being stagnant is a negative. It's not a
Yeah.
positive, and
Yeah.
that can't be good.
Do you also have to go out and do your own lead gen?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, in a
Okay.
sense, so the builder has their website and they get leads to that website.
Sure.
But what they encourage the most and what we're incentivized by the most is to go out there and make connections with the realtor community. Let's just say there's a realtor out there that I'm great friends with, and we have a connection, and they're bringing buyers to us. Like, that's me cultivating that relationship. That's me generating that lead, at least in the builder's eyes. And yeah, that's encouraged a ton, and we are incentivized to do that.
Well, I don't normally have, guys that work with builders on here, but I got to
Yeah.
tell you, man, your story is so unique. And I can only imagine where you'll be, at age 35, 40, with all,
Yeah.
because what you're getting more than the money that you're making good money, but more
Hmm.
than that, what you're getting is, a quadruple education
Yeah.
on on success, man. And
Yeah.
I mean, you're setting yourself up the right way. So, I really appreciate that. I'm
Yeah.
glad that one question, the big question that I wanted to ask you was, when people, especially when you were younger, because you got in the game at very young, in your
Yeah.
early 20s, how did you get over or overcome the objection of, you're talking to someone in their 40s or 50s and they're
There we
looking at like,
go.
man, you know what I'm talking about? Come on now.
Yeah.
You knew
That
I was
is,
going to come to
you
it.
get it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to
Well,
me.
first I try to take some humor into it, because people will bring it up, whether it's an unspoken objection I didn't know at the time, or people that bring it up, because people do bring it up. And they would bring up my age, and I would, make some humor on it, because sometimes the best thing you can do to not make it too serious is make a little joke out of it and be like, oh, well, that'll be a compliment one day. So I appreciate you saying that, because, you look so young. And when I was 22, I didn't look 22. I look younger than 22.
Sure.
So count that or factor that into it. But I would say, being able to actually train and learn the craft and be knowledgeable versus just saying, hey, eventually I'll look older and eventually that will stop being said. But having the knowledge base, so when people did bring that up, I could talk from experience, or, I knew what I was talking about. Because eventually you can take that gap of, in their head, they have this, hey, he's too young. If you know your stuff,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter anymore.
If you know
Right?
the game, if and when you start what we call spitting game, I'm going to
Yeah.
go there. You're like, well, hold on a minute. This guy, he's a lot older than he
Start
looks.
slinging it.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So, hey, I really appreciate it. Is there anything that I left out or that you wanted to add that might encourage or that you felt was unsaid?
I guess just driving home the point that relationships are a huge part of this business. Whether you think that a realtor partner, a realtor coworker is your not enemy, but someone that you're going against,
Yeah.
every relationship is going to matter. You have no idea what relationship that you can make with someone and where it's going to take you. No different than our relationship right here. I would have never have thought that I would have connected with you and be doing this podcast today. Relationships are such a big part of this business. And I think it'll take you further than you even think. Even if you think it'll take you far, it could take you further.
I love that. Every relationship matters, even if that person seems to be a competitor of
Yeah.
yours. You just
Yeah.
never know.
You
I mean,
don't.
in 5 years, I might be working for Ray. Who I
There
don't
you
know.
go.
You never know.
Possible. No, maybe
Yeah.
not.
So
But
so how what's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you, Ray, if they got questions or they just want to start following you, see what you're up to? What's best?
yeah, I would just say the social medias, right? You got Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are platforms that I post on. I'm starting to try to do more YouTube, but it's just at Ray Nouhan 3, RayNouhan, the number 3. And you can always, DM me or whatever, but that's usually the best way.
Man, I love it. We could stay on for hours, bro, because you are very inspirational. The oldest of 8. My wife was the youngest of 8.
No, there you
And
go.
22, you got in the game. 22 is when I married my wife and got in full time into, at that time, the music industry. So a
Yeah.
lot of commonalities. You just happen to be, a couple decades behind me,
Well, when
but
you put it like that,
you're moving a lot faster than my trajectory. So I appreciate, you coming on and sharing some formulas for success.
yeah,
The whole hospitality thing threw me for a loop, but I love how you've been able to work it in
yeah.
and continue
Leverage
to.
it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Love you, brother. All right, Ray. Thank you so
Appreciate
much, my
it.
man.
Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Success with Listings podcast. If you are serious about taking your real estate career to the highest heights, making more money and helping more clients while working less hours and spending more time with your family, be sure to get your copy of my free book, Triple My Listing, absolutely free at successwithlistings.com. Now, you want to be sure that you subscribe to the podcast and check out successwithlistings.com to get your copy of my free book. Hey, I'll see you on the next one.